the Madman! Welcome to another card review! So many cards. Let's get started with the Mage ones. Ray of Frost, 1 mana, Twinspell, freeze a minion if it's already frozen, deal 2 damage to it. I think it's really cool to have a spell that kind of has 2 modes. The first mode would be you want to freeze 2 things. The second mode is you want to kill a 2 health minion. Sometimes you want to freeze 1 really big minion twice over 2 turns. I think it is not as bad as it looks due to how flexible it is. 2 mana deal 2 is not bad, and a freeze a single minion effect which draws another freeze a minion effect, like that's pretty good for 1 mana. But where Ray of Frost has the chance to really shine is with Mana Cyclone. 2 mana 2/2 elemental. Battlecry for each spell you've cast this turn. Add a random mage spell to your hand. If you just add 1 random mage spell to your hand, then the value is similar to Babbling Book. 1 mana 1/1, add a random mage spell. 2 mana 2/2, add a random mage spell. Cool. But where the value lies is if you get more than 1. And I think it's pretty easy to get more than 1. Coin, Elemental Evocation, Ray of Frost, Mana Cyclone gets you 4 spells for 2 mana. Holy cow. It's kind of like Lyra, except instead of 5 mana, it's 2 mana. Really good with Sorcerer's Apprentice, reducing spells as well. Really good with cheap spells. Really good with cards that generate cheap spells. Example, Banana Buffoon, which I had been surprised had seen play in the last meta. I mean, with Mana Cyclone, I can actually see legitimate uses for those bananas. When the bananas turn into random mage spells, that becomes really good. Also, the information was revealed that all of the classes that have twin spells, the good classes, which is Mage, Paladin, Druid, and Hunter. It's hard to imagine Hunter as a good class. They're getting 2 twin spells apiece. So if the other Mage twin spell is inexpensive, could see it with Mana Cyclone also. A Paladin Legendary, Commander Rissa. 3 mana, 4/3, your secrets trigger twice. Really straightforward. I think this girl is as simple to evaluate as if the Secret Paladin deck is good, then Commander Rissa will probably increase its win rate by a little bit. If the Secret Paladin is bad, Commander Rissa will not see play. I don't think Commander Rissa is insane enough to make the Paladin secret deck. It's just one of those cards where, are you a Paladin secret deck? Then you should put Commander Rissa in your deck. The notable secrets that are really good with Commander Rissa are Noble Sacrifice, which you're already running 2 of in a Paladin deck. You get 2 2/1s instead of 1 2/1 with Commander Rissa. Good value. Although only 1 will block. Redemption is good. Commander Rissa will only redemption herself once, but if something else dies, another copy will be summoned on top of the first copy. No Surrender, +4 health instead of +2 when a spell goes off. That's pretty much the scoop on Rissa. If Secret Paladin is good, run Rissa. For Shaman, we've got the Mechmorph, 5 mana 4/4, Battlecry, transform into a 4/4 copy of a different minion in your deck. The dream here is 5 mana Malygos. But, first of all, it's random. Second of all, did you already draw Malygos? In which case, the Mechmorph is just going to transform into a random other thing in your deck instead. Maybe you could design a deck full of good transformations. But this turns out to be like a lot of obscure cards, I would say. I don't think it's worth adjusting your deck to such extremes to run Mechmorph. I'm certain that the card got a lot of testing with Malygos, and they found it not insane enough to worry about. But yes, you could high roll with a deck of 1 Mechmorph and 1 Malygos, and then you could meme your opponent by blasting them when you hit like a certain amount of mana. Oh, it's a different minion, so you could run 2 Mechmorph and a Malygos. Cool, that's a thing going for Mechmorph. I'd say as far as looking at Mechmorph, you could just point towards Eureka of the past and note that Eureka didn't really work, and Eureka was much more consistent. So how is Mechmorph supposed to work? Nah, it's just a joke card. And the card knows it's a joke, so it's got a huge grin. It's a clown. Walking Fountain, 8 mana, 4/8, Lifesteal, Rush, Wind Fury, Elemental. This is Hagatha raising up the big fountain in Dalaran into a monstrous walking fountain. And wow, that is That is really good. I think the process is first compare it to Amani Warbear. When that card first came out, people were like, oh yeah, that's kind of on the fair side. I don't know how good that is. Amani Warbear is all over the place now. Now, Walking Fountain. This card compares favorably to AKIR, a legendary. The lifesteal is such a big part of it, considering you're almost always going to be attacking twice with this, given its high health amount. So, Battlecry, gain 8 health immediately. But also, if you manage to kill 2 minions with it, or wound like 1 minion enough, and still have this be alive, it's still going to be around, and it's going to be such a big threat that the opponent is going to have to spend resources on it to kill it, because it basically has taunt, given that it has lifesteal and Wind Fury. Because if they don't deal with it, they're just going to gain 8 a turn. The really amazing thing is this is common, and I feel like this also taints people's views of it. If this came out as a legendary, and I think that it could totally have passed as a legendary, people would be like, oh my god, insane! Way better than AKIR. But it's common, you can even run 2 copies of it. So in the sort of control shaman list that we're thinking of these days, or maybe potentially even elementals, if elemental shaman is still a thing. So now on the 8th spot, you can be running 2 Walking Fountain and Hagatha for some really monstrous late game. And by the way, Countess Ashmore. By the way, I'm still here. This card has both Lifesteal and Rush. So you could draw 2 copies of Walking Fountain with your Countess Ashmore. Fellord Betrug, a Warlock 8 mana 5/7, Demon. Whenever you draw a minion, summon a copy with Rush that dies at end of turn. It's tough to evaluate because we haven't really seen effects like this before. The obvious synergy here is with Solarium. You could draw 3 cards, maybe they're all minions, and then you get to summon all 3, and then they all have Rush and they die at the end of the turn. But if they have Death Rattle, that's cool. And they get to clear stuff too. It reminds me of Flark's Boomzooka, which kind of sucked. A little bit better than Flark's Boomzooka in the sense that the 8 mana 5/7 threat is still around, and it's tough to deal with a 7 health minion, especially after you've summoned extra minions to deal with the opponent's board. At worst, it seems like you could play it on 10, and then life tap, and then hope you draw a minion. And finally, last but not least, we have a combo breaker, Hecklebot. 4 mana 3/8 mech, taunt. Battlecry, your opponent summons a minion from their deck. We saw a card similar to this from Naxxramas. Death Rattle, your opponent summons a minion from their deck. Deathlord is a better defensive minion because it comes out a turn earlier with only 1 less attack, and the Battlecry is delayed into a Death Rattle. Hecklebot is better than Deathlord in the perspective that you immediately get to summon a minion from the opponent's deck. And some combo decks really require you to have like a certain copy of a minion. The problem is, if you Hecklebot your opponent's Malygos out on turn 4, you're probably in for a world of pain. So perhaps Hecklebot is better played in the late game when you have the clear in your hand or when you're about to mass clear. But the sad thing then is you're like probably clearing your own Hecklebot. It's like, is that really going to be important enough? I ran the numbers on 2 of the decks in the current standard format, and the decks are going to look really different, but they show values of what is an average minion in the opponent's deck. Mid-range Hunter's minions aren't that big on average because cards like Spring Paw and Scavenging Hyena bring the average down. So when you Hecklebot a mid-range Hunter minion, they're only summoning under a 3/3 minion on average. But if you hit the other side of the equation, Wall Priest, their average minion is like 3 attack, 7 or 8 health. Even on average though, if you're summoning just a 3/3, if you discount their 6 stats and you roll them into the 6 stats of the Hecklebot, then that means the only stats left on the Hecklebot are 5, since total stat value of Hecklebot is 11. So is 4 mana for 5 stats good? Absolutely not. So not a great defensive option against a mid-range deck. Against the most aggressive of decks, then I guess it can serve the Deathlord purpose, but even Deathlord was played in the era where people were running 2/1 Leper Gnomes and just really, really aggressive decks. Those don't exist right now. You're running into cards that Deathlord would have considered mid-range, and Deathlord was not very good against mid-range minions, and this Hecklebot is even faster at getting out the opponent's minion than Deathlord, unless the meta changes to some extreme combo. Hecklebot probably won't be able to enjoy spouting out its 9 different Battlecry insults as well as 9 different attack lines. This is true, and this is the most voice lines ever voiced on a card. Incredible. There are some pros to Hecklebot, such as you can magnetize Zilliax onto it for a really big mech. You can discover Hecklebot with Control Warrior in the late game, in which case that could be useful in making sure your opponent fatigues before you do. Like, those are all cases that I see where Hecklebot will be played, but I don't really see many Hecklebots being run main deck in the deck. And it's always cool to have these combo disruptors around as tools in case Mechassoon were to ever become like 33% of the meta. So there's your Rise of Shadows cards for today. Keep tuning in for the avalanche of cards.